everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the Macabre Podcast universe. It is the continuation of our Keanu-thon.
Wow. You just now thought of that on the last series of him. Mm-hmm. Great.
And we are going through John Wick. And, well, before we do that, why do we exist, Jordan?
We exist to prove people wrong when they say sequels are never better than the originals. And today we're talking about a sequel. And it's starring Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves. It's John Wick Chapter 2. And we have one of our friends with us. We have Evan Kunze.
Hello.
Hi, Evan. This is our second time having a person-in-person recording.
Person in person.
This is, since we started, this is the third time we've had...
Oh, because your sister was here.
Yeah, but he's the second main feed person that we've ever been in the same room with when we record.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm honored.
Yeah, so here you are.
And I am the person that you're going to have to convince about that sequel thing, I think.
Okay.
Yes. Well, we attempt to convince every week, Evan, so...
Wow. So this is you only do sequels on this show, huh?
No, we do it all. We pick the series, we go through the series, and we explore it as we go. But what's funny is I've been excited about this for a while because this might be a contentious episode, a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna fight
because John Wick 2, I loved it from the get-go, and I remember when we would talk about movies and whatnot, you talked about how you didn't like this movie, and I was sort of like dumbfounded by that. Like, how could you not like this movie?
Was this one of the movies that we actually upset, like one of us got upset?
I feel like that was only Interstellar.
I think so too.
Okay.
Yeah. I was making sure because I didn't forget something.
Yeah, and I'm not so raw these days. But so when we were getting ready to do this series, I thought, I think we got to have them because if nothing else, this will provide some interesting insights for some of our listeners, whether they like it or not. Because we oftentimes, guest comes on and they say something crazy and we're kind of like, okay, that's fine. We love movies. That's why we're here. So let's kick it off as we always do, though. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about when was the first time you saw this movie, and let's start with Evan and just your experience with the movie at the time, basic wise.
Yeah, basic experience. I saw it opening day, I believe, in theaters.
Great.
And I decided to watch it because I saw some rave, or I think some hype online, probably Reddit. And so then I watched the first movie the day before in anticipation of watching the second movie. And that will be a major thread throughout, I think, the narrative that I have come to, that I've got an opinion. And because of that, I think my opinion of the second movie is explicitly related to my experience with the first movie.
Perfect. Great.
Well, and you went with Grayson too, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember, I think after that he was riding high on the movie, and you were kind of like,
yeah.
I have to admit, I've seen a lot of
simply.
I've seen a lot of movies with you in the theaters, and I can never ever tell when we walk out whether you liked it or not.
Yeah, I play it pretty close to the chest.
Yeah.
Not with my words, just on my face, I think.
Yeah, because when we walked out of the French Dispatch, I was like, oh, I don't know if Evan liked that.
I just find that in my personality, like I don't want to be the guy that poops on everything that everyone likes.
Yeah.
And I found that I am that guy a lot in my in my inner dialogue, and so I've learned to curb that. And that's probably what you're seeing. Because I'm happy to talk if somebody's game for it. But I don't ever want to offer up. It's not that I always have a negative opinion. I just, I don't want my opinion to soil anyone else's experience, I think. So I've now learned to have people approach me if they care to ask. So I'm usually not like, woo, or like, that sucked.
Yeah. I try the older I get, unless you can tell with The Room, or there's something that's just like so egregious where you can be like, it's pretty safe that if I say, hey, that was really stupid, people aren't going to be mad or anything. But if I'm excited, you'll hear me talking. That's always going to happen. But if I'm not, or if I'm just contemplating, like out of French Dispatch, I wasn't like riding high off of that movie. It took me like a day to kind of think about it before I was like, yeah. Because it just wasn't my favorite Wes Anderson, which is okay. But when we walk out of something bad, it might be like, okay, I gotta kind of. So I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
If I'm watching currently, like in the middle of watching the movie, I'm not liking it, you will know. I'm so bad at hiding it.
Yeah.
Like I think one of my
I can
tells,
sense it. There's like a moment.
It's like an
and I will
energy
feel
or something.
it.
But
Sure.
like I feel like too for me a tell is when I just like throw my head on the back of the seat and just like, you gotta be kidding me. There's like another hour. I remember specifically when we saw Bohemian Rhapsody with your parents. Like there were so many times I did that. And kind of after the movie you were like, yeah, I mean, you didn't say this verbatim or anything, but you might kind of felt like, yeah, you kind of like maybe ruined the experience for me because the whole time just like, what is going on? This movie sucks as the movie's going.
But I didn't like that movie, the record.
I know, but I didn't help you like the movie while I was watching it.
I think I was more
But
like...
I've gotten better.
Yeah.
I've gotten better.
I think I was more self-conscious that maybe my parents noticed and they like took us to the movies. And so I was like, I don't want them to be... offended or
I think
something.
I've gotten better.
Yeah.
When in those cases I usually just go to the popcorn because I can't be upset when I'm eating popcorn.
That's great.
Yeah.
Maybe I should get popcorn when I'm not sure I'll like the movie.
But that's why I try sometimes, like when we saw Eternals, when I got to that moment where I was like, man, I can't stand this movie. That's when I like to turn and say something to you, Jordan, so you don't have to worry about making sure that I'm not noticing that you're hating the movie.
Yeah, but once you do that, all bets are off, and I'm just gonna be like shaking my head the whole time. I feel like if my head's in my hand,
Yeah, that's a bad sign.
That's a bad sign too.
But
Wow.
So what was your experience with this movie first time?
This
It was when I showed it.
Yeah, it was the
same experience.
I think it was
as
a
last
double
week.
feature, and I liked it a lot. The action is just so freaking good.
So you also saw one and then rolled right into two.
Right into two.
For the first time you saw one, or
Yes.
did you watch one before?
No,
Wow.
yeah, I hadn't seen. Those were both my first times
Great.
together, and loved it so much. And then I know we'll talk about it more in John Wick 3 about what I think about John Wick 3. But it's interesting watch. So this is the second time I've seen John Wick 2, and having since seen John Wick 3, I think I've changed my tune a little bit about John Wick 2. But I still like it.
Okay, interesting. I might be.
But is that off limits for tonight?
No, you can talk about it. We'll just reserve some of our stuff.
Yes,
Sure.
no, you can talk about it.
But we still might get into it.
Okay.
I
want to
can-
get into her
yeah.
thoughts on 3, but I get it.
I'll allude to it.
Yeah. But okay. So what's funny is so we have like you watched the movie the day before. You watched the movie the day of 1 and 2, and I watched it like in the same month for the first time I watched John Wick 1.
I wonder how many people have done that, because
Well, see, that's the whole thing, because John Wick 2 comes out, and on IMDb and stuff, at least at the time, scores were like above an 8, I remember, and it just had, like, if you clicked on it, it's just a picture of all these guns surrounding Keanu Reeves, and then if you clicked on the banner, it would show just him walking his dog across the Brooklyn Bridge. And to me, I was just like, what is this? Why is everyone excited about this?
I think 1 was definitely a sleeper hit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like maybe the second one sparked a lot of interest in people saying, oh, I saw one. You know, there's one person in the friend group of 15 that saw
Yeah.
it and was like,
Yeah.
oh, you got to see it. It's great.
Yeah, we'll watch it tonight, go
Yeah.
see it tomorrow
Yeah,
or whatever.
exactly.
And so, but like I said last week, I was in Ecuador and I was reading about John Wick 2, and I'm like, this seems cool. John Wick is on Netflix. I watch it, and I go, that's cool. And then I come home, and I remember I was at your parents' house, or the old townhouse, before we got married. And this is just a classic, like, annoying Micah move, because I had, like, homemade ramen in a mason jar.
okay.
Because my mom was like, "Hey, there's this cool recipe I saw. Let me make you these."
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So I put water in this thing that had like spinach and ginger.
You don't have to get into it.
It was very tasty. Okay. And so I thought, this is perfect. I'm going to microwave this now and sneak it into the movies and see John Wick Chapter 2.
Wait, did you?
And so I microwaved it at the townhouse. I got to the movie and
You just had this hot glass jar in your pocket?
Unhinged.
That's crazy.
It's terrible.
Unhinged.
And you ate it during the movie. How'd it taste?
It was delicious, but I will say
Messy.
I spilled it like
Smelly.
Yeah.
I spilled a lot on me.
Yeah.
It was so stupid. And
Classic
so,
Micah
crazy.
trying to save a buck.
Yeah. Yep. That's an egregious example of that part of my personality. So I saw it and I walked out and I thought to myself.
Wait, this is by yourself?
Yeah.
This is John Wick 2.
John Wick 2.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, that movie proves people wrong when they say sequels are never better than the originals.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. I thought up our tagline years before we even came up with this podcast. And so that is my John Wick experience. Of course, I think it gets a little spicier next episode.
Yeah, I think
But
so
we'll
too.
see, because as often is the case, we'll rewatch a movie that we like or we didn't like, and we go, actually, I like it now. So maybe that'll happen with John Wick 3. But
So you didn't like John Wick 3?
no.
Sorry, am I spoiling? You can cut this.
No. We
Really?
won't cut.
Well,
We won't.
I wouldn't say I disliked it. I've only seen it the one time we saw it in theaters.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it since. Action was awesome.
Yeah.
Action is always awesome.
Yeah.
It's the minutia.
Okay.
But
I
I'll
thought
get
the
into
story-
it in this one too.
Sure.
Well, and the thing with John Wick 3 that we're not going to get into, but it's always a bummer when you're watching a movie and you think of how the story, like one little improvement could have like made the movie like 20% better.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with me in John Wick 3. Like an hour into the movie, I was like, if they just did this, I think I would be more on board with everything that's happening. So, folks, you got to tune in next week.
Yeah.
You got to tune in next week. So, but before we get into the plot here, let's talk a little bit about how this movie was made. Again, it's directed by Chad Stahelski.
Is that the same director?
Same director. The last
as
movie
one.
had 2 directors, but one was uncredited,
The last movie,
being John Wick.
not John Wick 3.
John Wick 1.
John Wick 1 had 2 directors. One
Yeah.
was uncredited. Same writer,
Same writer, Derek Kolstad.
both for both movies.
All 3 movies.
And same director for the first 2, minus a ghost director.
Yeah. Yeah, so the guy who is not directing this time is working on, I think, Atomic Blonde or Deadpool 2. So
Yeah.
he might be making a movie that I've heard
Before.
is good. No, after.
3.
No. So John Wick, you have David Leitch.
3 doesn't exist yet.
Okay.
Yeah. You have David Leitch and you have Chad Stahelski, and David Leitch leaves.
The ghost director leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The uncredited one.
Yes.
He leaves to go do Atomic Blonde.
Yeah, I'm double checking that it is Atomic Blonde. Yeah, so Atomic Blonde comes out later in the year that John Wick comes
got
out.
it.
And then he'll go on to direct the horrible Deadpool 2. We can agree on that.
Is that the one? I think I like that one.
Oh no.
I think.
I think for
I don't
me-
remember. I
Maybe
shouldn't
not
have said
horrible.
that. Cut that out.
Maybe
No,
not
I'm just kidding.
horrible.
I don't know. I think Deadpool as a whole, someone who's not read the comics, looking back on it, it's like I think the first watch was the best watch.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
That's
It's
think
kind of a
that's it.
one-trick pony kind of a situation.
yeah.
But so then the cinematographer is different this time. This time it's Dan Laustsen, and he's done John Wick 3, he's doing John Wick 4, but he's also a big Guillermo del Toro guy who's done Crimson Peak, The Shape of Water, Nightmare Alley, the upcoming Nightmare
So
Alley.
he's the one I might have a bone to pick with.
me too.
Really? On this movie or on a
Two.
movie that I mentioned?
Guillermo del Toro.
Oh.
I think you need to get into that for the listener because we haven't got into this.
I think I love Guillermo del Toro. He makes really beautiful, wonderful movies. Probably my biggest issues with his movies though are how they look for me.
Wow.
Like Crimson Peak looks like a TV movie.
Mm-hmm.
And Shape of Water doesn't look bad or anything, but it just has like a like artificial finish to it that I guess kind of helps with the fairy tale part of it, but it's just not my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of think Pan's Labyrinth also falls into that a little bit, but personally that's my favorite one, and I feel like that's his best looking one.
Yeah.
And then the new movie that's coming out, is it the same guy?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, you can tell. I'm just like nervous that it's also going to look like TV.
Yeah, that is a weird thing. It does kind of. I mean, I think the exception being Shape of Water, which you did mention.
But it still kind of has it a little bit to me.
It does, but it just seems so much more intentional than the other movies. They seem almost like they just couldn't get the right cameras or something. But I don't know enough about it to understand.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen Crimson Peak, but I've seen the others. But
anyway.
Okay, well. And you think you're going because of this movie? You think
I have thoughts.
Okay, this is the time on cinematography. Let's dig in.
That feels a little premature. Well, one of my biggest gripes is the contrast between the first movie and the second movie.
Okay.
And I think a big part of that I realized on this viewing is the shift from realistic, gritty New York.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking, seedy clubs, warehouses, New York City lofts, rich guy houses, John Wick's house. And then we shift to this hyper fantasy New York, where, like all of the set pieces that's neon galore.
Yeah.
The subway system that they go into doesn't look like any subway system I've ever been in. It's all like
very
the architecture.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I get it's New York, and it probably is a real place even. I don't know, but everything is like intentionally, like the last fight scene is in that art museum, but it's like the transition to that is all very obscured, and like it just feels like it's much more of like a fantasy New York than like the real gritty New York of John Wick 1. And I think that there are parallels in other contrasts that are why I find John Wick 2 so egregious that I will probably save for later.
That's very interesting, though. Yeah,
I do think what I dig. This is viewing this on the total polar opposite of what you're saying. Is that like the first movie we get the glimpses. I mean, obviously this isn't necessarily something that they planned because they made John Wick, and then it made money, and they were like, let's make John Wick 2.
Yeah.
So we're not going to saddle around that fact. But I do like how the first movie, like the red circle fight is very, neon. It's a club. But it's still, grimy and dirty, like you're saying. But it almost feels like there's elements of what like the fantasy that will come forward becomes. So for me, I like that idea where it's like, okay, now we've established this nice looking hotel, this weird thing. What if we go like further into that?
Yeah.
But it does make sense because it's like what at least I'm hearing you say is it's kind of like the other movie has. It feels like it's in our world, and this one does not so much.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that, though, because of the premise of this movie, where this guy's basically like, you have to work for me, it is like we are seeing the world that they alluded to the whole first movie. So it is almost like this is what you get. Like this is what the world is.
Evan's giving us a look. He's saying, no.
You should finish your thought, though.
But just like so it's just like this is the world we were talking about the whole first movie, and it is full of rich people, potential, like in this story at least, full of rich people who have these crazy art museums, who have parties in like the Roman Forum, like crazy places. But I do like what you said about it, though, how the first movie is a lot grittier and slimier in that way, and this one it is very just like polished. And almost like like you can believe it less than the first one, and the first one's even crazy.
Yeah.
And I just think on a aesthetic level, there is something to be said for like consistency between the two, but I think this movie looks way better than the first movie.
Yeah, I think that depends on what you gravitate towards.
Yeah. I love the bombastic. Okay. Now music. We got the same two guys, Tyler Bates and Joel Richard.
I think the music's better in this one. Can we have that?
I didn't.
I
I
like the
couldn't tell
music.
you.
Didn't track it.
Yeah.
It felt less. It felt less over the top this time, but maybe because the movie is more over the
Yeah.
top.
There was much more fighting scenes
Yeah.
in the second one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So there was more need for like dum dum dum.
Yeah. So maybe that's
Yeah.
why it feels that way.
Okay, budget of this movie, 40 million. The last one was 20 to 30. So,
Yeah.
and you can see that budget raise
Yeah.
in this movie.
Well, and also I think 40 million for what they got from John Wick 2 is an achievement.
Yeah.
that is nuts.
Yeah.
And then domestically, it makes 92 million, and worldwide, it makes 171 million. And the studios producing this say, let's keep this going. Then just a couple things, because there's actually not a lot on the production of this movie, but Keanu trained in Brazilian jiu-jitsu with the Machado brothers, who are like these Brazilian jiu-jitsu masters.
They are Brazilian jiu-jitsu masters, or are they Brazilian jiu-jitsu masters?
The second one.
Okay.
Like I think
Yeah.
they helped develop and whatnot Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Great.
And they worked with Keanu Reeves.
And that type of fighting style is the kind that really looks like a dance,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
From what I've seen.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on, I don't know. It's all the fighting he's doing in this movie. That's
Yeah.
what it looks like.
Yeah. I just never. Whatever. Yeah.
But it's pretty cool. If you're interested, listeners, you can see some behind the scenes, and it's kind of nuts watching Keanu train for this, because he's even saying in the behind the scenes, like, I'm getting older now. This stuff is not as easy. But then all the martial arts guys and stuff are like, he's kind of nuts. Like,
Yeah.
I've never worked with a celebrity that's gone this insane. And then you can watch him working with this like world record holding gunsman who will like walk down a hallway and just shoot like every target perfectly, like just
wow.
sweep through and with a shotgun or a pistol or whatever. And then he's having Keanu like do what he's doing.
Wow.
So as much as Keanu was doing, a lot of his own stuff in John Wick 1, there's certainly an upgrade to like, we're really going to not really use a stunt double. I mean, I'm assuming that there are a few things that are like, I just can't imagine that they're like, yeah, Keanu, go ahead and jump down these stairs.
or drive this car for this whole sequence where we're gonna bash the car. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, he's really doing most everything you're seeing, and he knows how to do all that stuff. And I think that really, I mean, I always love that when an actor like spends that much time to make it look like, yeah, he's John Wick. He can do these things.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then to answer your question, when we were watching the movie, Lawrence Fishburne had been announced as being casted in this movie. So
okay.
it wasn't a complete, like...
But I bet he wasn't advertised.
I don't think he was. I don't think
Okay.
I knew he was in the movie when I saw it.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. So that's what I got.
Okay.
Jordan.
I'll just blow through the actors. So we have, talked about Keanu and the other main players in the last movie. But in this one, we have Ricardo Scamarcio. He plays Santino. He is in a crap ton of Italian movies and TV shows, like more that than American stuff.
Cool.
But he's also in The Ruthless, The Woman in White, Master of None, which I do remember him in Master of None. He was really good. And he looked really good in that show. And then Ruby Rose plays Ares. She is in Orange is the New Black, Triple X, Return of Xander Cage, Vanquish, The Flash Arrow, The Meg, Supergirl, a ton of other stuff.
Okay.
And we also have Common, who plays
Yeah.
Cassian. He is in a ton of things. Most notably, he's in Wanted, Ava, Date Night, New Year's Eve, Happy Feet 2, Movie 43, Now You See Me, Selma, and the Entourage movie. And then Claudia Gerini plays Santino's sister, Gianna. She's in Passion of the Christ, Love and Bullets.
Who did she play in Passion of the Christ?
I don't know. I didn't. Her name
The
was
baby.
her name was also Claudia, but I know it was a character's name, not like she was playing herself, obviously.
Okay.
But I didn't, on first glance, recognize the name.
All right.
And But she's also in Love and Bullets, Under the Tuscan Sun, The Poison Rose, and a lot of Italian TV and movies. And then Peter Stormare, he is at the beginning of the movie. I would call it even a cameo.
This is the Fargo guy.
Yeah, so he's in Fargo, Brothers Grimm, Constantine, Armageddon, Castlevania, Fast and Furious Crossroads, among many other things.
And we have talked
The Russian
about
guy?
him.
Is that who that is?
Yeah.
Oh, Prison Break. Isn't he in Prison Break?
Oh, I think he is.
Prison Break.
We talked about him because
Dang it.
in Jurassic
I had a
Park.
feeling we covered him.
But every once in a while we should, it's been over a year since we talked about him, but we talked about him because he's in Jurassic Park: The Lost World. And remember, he gets eaten by all those little dinosaurs because Steven Spielberg said,
totally is.
Yeah. He was like, he was so despicable in Fargo. I had to kill him in the worst way possible in this movie.
Is he also the guy in Minority Report, or is that a different actor?
I don't remember.
He's
he's
the eyeball doctor.
Are you thinking of Tim Blake Nelson
Maybe.
from Old Henry, a movie you just watched and told me to watch?
You watched it?
No, I haven't watched it yet, but
we
he's
will.
in it.
I don't see him in Minority Report.
Great.
Yeah.
Then
Peter
you know
Stormare
what?
rules, though.
That may be the guy that's in Prison Break. So I would fact check.
Okay. So do you want to set the stage at all, or should we just go as we go?
I mean, I'm happy. It's your podcast, baby.
Yeah, but you're the guest. I mean, if you want to,
I have thoughts. I could go for the whole episode. Probably.
Let's go.
Let you guys talk it all.
And if we kind of go loose on the plot a little bit, that's okay. We can talk bigger if we need to for this.
Is there a format you guys normally do that?
We usually just go beginning to end.
Okay.
I guess let me jump off because I have a little bit of a different viewing this time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so first time saw it, loved it. Was really going off the high of the first movie. Not to say the second movie's bad. I like it. But in watching this movie, you and I weren't probably the best movie viewers last night and paused it a lot because we were talking or we needed to do something, which stretched this movie out way longer than I wanted it to be. Because
probably only like 10 minutes. But
I know, but by the end of it, I was like, this movie needs to end. This movie needs to end. I was so done. But still... action, crazy, fun. I could watch it forever. But the story and getting into the nitty-gritty details of there's a bug on, it's probably from this table.
It's just a little beetle.
There's one under this cup.
There's also one up on that.
Oh no,
this table.
I shouldn't have brought this table inside. You can keep talking, Jordan.
Okay, Mike doesn't have to edit some of that. Okay, but where was I at? So, getting into the nitty-gritty details of like how this whole thing works. Watching it the second time, it was a little bit like, okay, this is kind of slowing the movie down for me. And going into the third movie, not too much. But I remember watching that in theaters, which is the only time I've seen it. It was kind of like at some point, like, why are they explaining everything? Like what I liked most about the first movie, besides the action, was that they weren't saying everything.
Right.
That was so fun to just have like use this certain vocabulary to mean this world that I don't know what it is. But in making a second movie, I don't know how else they do it without showing me everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Okay, and actually I'll jump in before you go because I'll just tell you my updated opinion. I watched this movie last night and every time I've been like, love, love, love. And this time we finish it, and I think to myself, which might hurt you a little bit, Evan, I think, man, this John Wick 1 is so, so, so good, and this movie is so, so much better than that movie.
Wow. Yeah. That doesn't hurt me in the slightest.
So, all right, Evan, please, the table is yours.
So I think we have to step back. I watched the movie, and it was on a whim. Uh-huh. And I think maybe even what had happened was I'd been invited to watch 2. And I was like, well, I haven't even watched 1. Blech. And so I was like, I got to watch 1. And I was almost kind of like not looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So I rented it. I think I had to actually rent it, watched it on my TV alone on a day off. Mm-hmm. And I had like a religious experience. I was like, this is, because I don't typically
about 1, obviously.
This is about 1.
Okay.
I typically don't like action movies all that much.
Yeah.
I can sit through them and I like the pretty colors, but
yeah,
but I think I just was like, man, this is so cool, because it kind of, whether intentionally or not, I felt like it subverted a lot of what action movies are bad at. It gave you a really localized personal story that had mystery to it, that was slowly revealed, like peeling it back like an onion. You were like, you know, oh, it's just going to be,
like
it's
Shrek.
going to be like, what was that movie with Gerard Butler where they come in and
White House Down.
no, they come in and they hurt his family.
Law-abiding citizen.
Law-abiding
Yes.
citizen.
Oh, I forgot about
so
that
when you
movie.
first watch it, if you're not thinking about it too hard, you're like, oh, it's kind of like a law-abiding citizen thing.
Yeah.
You know, he's in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he gets his butt whooped, and you know, you can kind of tell what's coming. You're like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. He's gonna have to go on a bender or whatever. And then he starts like slamming, you know, the concrete as this guy, this Russian mobster, is explaining the boogeyman and how he's going to kill you, and you're like, just the hair on the back of your neck stands up, because that's like so cool, and you're like, oh, they should not have messed with this guy, and I didn't know it. You know, literally 15 minutes ago, he was doing a flash or what's the, I wrote it down. A Footloose style driving scene where he's like dancing in the airport, except he's driving his car around going, ah! Like all emotional. And now all of a sudden you know that you're going to be seeing him, you know, that he's this special guy. And I just think that was so masterfully done. And so like, it wasn't, I think especially around Avengers time and stuff, it wasn't a world shattering scope.
Sure. Yeah.
It was a personal story.
Absolutely.
They killed his puppy, and he's gonna whoop ass. They stole his car, and he kills puppy.
Yeah.
And so I think that it was just so exciting. Like, and you were getting some fresh ideas. Like, it's a little weird that he's like, you know, handing these like doubloons out for services, but it didn't feel like fantasy to me. It felt like, what does that mean? Like, or I remember having an epiphany when in the first scene, when they send the goons to his house, and he kills all the goons, and then they come and clean up the bodies. I remember being like, oh, that's so cool, because that's something that normal action movies, they never explain how the bodies get, you know, disposed of or whatever. And so like, it felt more like a nod to people who roll their eyes at action movies and saying like, we have a cool answer to all those questions you have. We are an action movie, but we're also like in on the joke that is action movies, and we're gonna create cool subversions to all of those tropes. I also love in the first movie, there's really no like, there ends up being kind of a boss scene. Yeah. But the villain is really the son.
Yeah.
And he goes and he just like whoops the warehouse guys in like, it wasn't even an extended scene.
Pretty
it was
short.
No, it's like the shortest one in the movie.
And then he just goes up and shoots him. And that's it. And it's over.
Yeah.
And it was just like subversion. It was like, that doesn't ever happen. The guy never just, you know, gets the bad guy.
Yeah.
You know, and then they did end up having kind of a what I feel like made sense to be a kind of final boss fight, because it was more of like, we're going to strip down to just fists because of this past and this respect we have for each other, not because of some, you know, tornado or something that took away all of our superhero weapons.
Yeah.
And so everything just was like, oh, it's perfect. It's like subverting all of my expectations. It's a localized story. I care about John Wick's story. Like, all of that, I feel like from the very first scene with the motorcycle kind of coming in is just, it's gone. It is just becomes the action movie that and hits every single trope, every single note. It's got, you know, it goes international. That's like a classic sequel thing. It's got the Mission Impossible sequence where he goes and tries out all the new gadgets. It's got like all of these crazy tropes. And I was like, this is exactly the reason I liked the first one, is you were going and you were dodging all of these tropes and all of these things that make me roll my eyes about action movies. And you're just like, yeah, this is who we are. Like, the locations are not real. He's invincible. Yeah, he gets hurt. Yeah, he gets, run over by a car, but then he just gets up and like, there's no
stakes.
There's no stakes. He's got total, he's shooting, he's got now in the first one, he's always fighting and he's got the upper hand. And so there rarely gets to gunplay. And when it does, he obviously has the upper hand because he was the one that was prepared. There are a couple occasions where, I think that they do a really good job of saying he doesn't have the upper hand and he kind of gets underneath their thumb a little bit, the bad guy's thumb. In some of the fighting scenes. But most of the time, like in the club, he just shows up and he has the upper hand. They don't know he's coming and he just like boom, 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 boom. But in this one, he goes down, the catacombs. And there is 100 people with assault rifles attacking him, and he can't be hit. And I mean, I guess he had that suit that's bulletproof. Bulletproof suit. Oh, I hate it. I hate it so much.
That's so funny. Well, okay. So first of all, I have to, as we continue throughout, I do have to commend and acknowledge that you do have a well thought out, and I'm not going to try to dismiss your opinion on this, because I do think that is a way to look at it for sure. And I think, because even when we've talked about it in the past, I think it hasn't quite clicked. But the way you just laid it out, I think, okay, that makes sense to me. I think I can, because one of the things I had remembered you saying, but you probably didn't. But I thought you had talked about like how the second movie is like goofy, like really goofy.
Yeah, I walked back on that.
Yeah, because when I watched John Wick, like the first John Wick this time, I just thought like, oh, I don't remember how goofy the first movie is. Like it's got all the kind of like, and I like it. It's the goofy that I like in my movie, but it is like inherently like a silly movie.
I would say it's campy for sure.
Yeah.
But I will say in my original viewing, I caught some like, I thought it was trying to be funny, like a comedy, like a Ocean's type, like and I didn't catch that on the second viewing. There was some like awkward things, I think, like when she pats him down and like grabs his nuts or whatever. Like and I also think as much as I like the actor, the first Russian guy that you meet, that was I think it was a poorly acted, cheesy scene when he's like up there and he's restating everything from the previous movie, but he's this guy we've never even heard of. Like, we didn't even know the other guy had a brother and all this. He came and killed my brother and my nephew, and he's the boogeyman, and he's come for us all. And like, I don't know. It's like, oh my God.
And for me, all of that, these are fist pumps.
I think like it gets a pass for me because one, it's campy, and then also it does explain everything that happened in the first one. Not that you always need to do that in movies, but it is pretty quick, and it is intercut with the car stuff, which I love. That's the car stuff at the beginning of the movie is probably one of my favorite action parts of this movie.
That's one of my favorites in the series.
Yeah,
because it's so crazy and like okay, so the movie, to fill in a couple of gaps, the movie basically starts with John Wick is like, I'm going to get my car back.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, a fun little nod. The first like real shot we see after you're hearing the motorcycles is we see on the side of a Victoria's Secret, they're playing Buster Keaton's The General on the side of the building, which is basically the stuntmen and the martial artist people being like, Buster Keaton, you're one of the godfathers of stunts.
Yeah.
This is for you.
Yeah.
Which I'm always a sucker for that kind of stuff. So then, and they also time the crashes with what Buster Keaton's doing on the screen. All of that. Come on. So anyway, he's going into the garage now, and it's this whole big like fight scene where he's using his car as a weapon.
Yeah.
Just like on the end of, like in John Wick 1, how he was like sliding around and shooting people with the car. He's doing that, but it's closer quarters. And There's a couple shots that Jordan and I paused it and we went step by step because we were trying to figure out like how you could even do this and how it could look so good if you did do this without murdering someone. Because there's that shot where he runs over a guy and he flies and he hits the pole.
Well, he spins the car around to hit that guy.
Yeah.
Which flings him into the pole.
And
it looks good when we did it step by step.
Yeah, and then that shot where Keanu's in the car and the car gets hit and he falls out of the car.
Yeah.
I just remember when I was in theaters, I was like eating my ramen, spilling it all over myself, just
You
like
probably
this
jumped
I probably did because I was like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
So already props to that. And what this is the whole episode, folks. So strap in here. But like the counterpoint that I do love about this scene is like it's setting the tone. I mean, if you're watching them back to back, it is a little bit different of an effect. But especially if you were like, I saw John Wick in theaters, then I went and saw John Wick 2. It's a good way to like recap it. And I just like how the Russian guy upstairs is hearing all of the violence and he's just like,
not doing anything because he knows there's nothing he can do.
What did I do? Because, you know, the whole last movie, everyone, like the main Michael Blomkvist.
Nope.
Blomkvist.
Nope, that's the director.
No, that's his character in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh.
Michael.
I'm thinking of Neil Blomkamp.
No, what's his name? But the Vigo.
Nivkist.
Yes, Michael Michael.
It's fine. People know.
Yeah, so the main bad guy in the last movie.
Yeah.
It's just great how like the whole movie he's just saying, my son screwed this for me.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe you did
But
this. This was so stupid.
He still believes that he can win.
He does. But like, you know, that first scene when he gets the call and they're like, it was John Wick's car, it was John Wick's dog, and he's just like, oh. You know, so I like that this guy who is his brother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we have his car. Of course he's gonna come get it. And then I love how he does all the fighting. It's insane, of course. And then he comes upstairs and he's like,
peace.
John Wick pours 2 glasses and he says, peace. And he goes, how can a man like you know peace? And he goes, why not? And then he says, peace. And then they cheers and he leaves with his car.
Yeah. So one thing to contrast, another contrast that I've noticed. So another big gripe I have is the emphasis on fantasy elements that were technically present in the first one, but I would argue are reappropriated for the second movie.
Okay.
So in the first movie, you have the mob, the Russian mob, and an associate of the mob.
Yeah.
Now, yes, it kind of unfolds and you realize that he is a member amongst some other elite assassins.
Yeah.
But this whole like doubloon thing as like a I would say that's a fantasy element, right? Like you go to a hotel and you give them a doubloon and suddenly you get a special room or whatever. But if you think about, there's never any reference really to anything greater than the mob. It's really zoomed in. Mm-hmm. You really believe that John Wick's association is to the mob and maybe other mob-like types, organizations. And I would say, you know, the use of a separate currency. So it's kind of an indicator that you are one of these assassins. It's almost like an identifier more so than it is this like mint process, you know, that they introduced in the second one with the boxes and stuff. And I don't remember anything about the third one. So some of this could be answered in the third one, but basically I'm going to make the argument that it was a story about, you know, the best mob assassin ever, and there were some other assassins close to the mob that were involved in this sort of ring, and they had, obviously, if you kill a lot of people, you have to have a service that comes and picks them up. You know, you have a special currency for those situations. I think it was really localized. And with the second one, they took all of those kind of weird fantasy kind of things and they repurposed them. Now you've got the hotel is not one hotel. It's a whole cell of an organization that's now supposedly like an authority amongst these assassins. Like it's a governing body almost. If you get excommunicado, you're dead or whatever. Like So I just take a lot of issue with that because what I loved about this story of the first one is it's so John Wick's story, and you know why you care about John Wick. With the second one, it's not John Wick's story. Like everything that John Wick says after he completes the marker is like, when he talks to Lawrence Fishburne,
Mm-hmm.
he says, well, Santiago or whatever his name is, he's going to come for New York. And like,
Yeah.
as soon as I heard that,
Yeah.
I go, oh boy, New York is in trouble. Like, why do I care?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is not real.
I felt that on this viewing for sure. Yeah, I think probably one of the biggest issues with this movie that I still like is that it isn't about John Wick,
Yeah.
which sucks because that's the title of the movie. And so I think the premise for me makes I think the premise for me makes sense. Where like the events of the first movie happened, this movie ends. This movie starts with him ending the first movie by getting his car. He's done.
Now,
That's it. No, but
can I just say very quickly, in the theaters first time when he was getting his car, I just thought that was so cool how it tied together.
I like that too because I forgot about it by the end of the first movie.
Yeah, and I was like,
forgot.
oh yeah, he didn't have his car. This is so cool.
And especially when he didn't really care about the car, he cared about the letter from his wife in the car. Like,
Right.
That's the wonderful emotional part about John Wick.
Yeah.
So then once that's over, it is like, so what is he gonna do now? He's just gonna like continue to grieve, which it seems like that's what he wants to do. But of course, the premise is this guy comes and is like, we made a blood oath. I saved your life, and you
Right.
and basically how it works is whenever of my choosing, you have to save mine. No matter what grieving process you're going through, if you want in or out, it doesn't matter. So now, obviously, like you said, it's not about John Wick. I think they try to keep it about him still by throughout the movie, this guy like basically tries blowing him up for not doing it, which forces him to do it. And kind of like throughout the movie, he's like, I'm just going to kill that guy because he made me get back into this. Like his rage is kind of what it's about. But on the whole, it's like, what is he really learning about himself or going through?
Yeah.
When I think in the first movie, it's easier to identify that.
And if you really look at the stakes, the real stakes,
Yeah.
he does what the guy says, the guy kills him. He doesn't do what the guy says, the guy kills him.
Mm.
He does what the guy says, escapes the guy, tries to kill the guy. Everyone kills him. Like, the story gives there's no like greener pasture that John Wick could be on. You just feel so. I felt so railroaded into this action trope. Oh, some mysterious guy from his past is coming to call in this favor that he can't say no to. Like blah 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 blah. Like, why couldn't they just keep it? I would love to have seen just a little bit of basically my gripe is they felt the need to take John Wick and blow it up and make it neon and make it more action and make it more. And all I wanted was just a continuation of the story I loved. This felt like taking John Wick and exploding it out and making it The Martian. It's just the most actions for the most dumb people to just open their like brains and go.
Then, folks, I count myself amongst the dumb because I love this movie. No, those are good points. I think.
Oh, and no offense.
No, but what's funny about like me holding this movie in high regard is that this movie it does a classic sequel thing. That's what we're discussing, where it says, okay, we have to go bigger. And that's the logic. Bigger is better. Not always the case. I think in this case, it works. But that's funny because then the next sequel is like, but we have to go bigger and better.
Yeah, and it's like, hold on.
And for me, I'm like,
what are you doing?
I thought I wanted more expansion, but I think chapter 2 was like the limit of what I wanted for the expansion. I mean, we're talking about a fact that like this movie has homeless people throughout New York that are all assassins. I mean, that's pretty hard to swallow.
By the end of this movie, and I think I thought about this the first time I watched it.
That's my limit, I think.
Yeah, I think I thought about this the first time I watched it, but especially this time, by the end of this movie, it's like, so everyone's an assassin.
Exactly.
How does this reality function?
Yeah.
Everyone's just
Everyone's an assassin.
People.
When he's walking down that park and leaving the movie, everyone's looking at him and you're like, and also like there's the montage
of him coming back to New York.
Yeah and fighting the assassins one by one. They're all like like anime characters. Like you have the big sumo guy, you have the slender girl. Like it's that was not in the first movie. It was a gritty mob movie about
that was underground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it just lost all of that. It just it turned its back on it even because none of that's there. Like it said we'll give you one sequence where he gets his car and he looks at the letter and then
we're off to the races.
Yeah, especially with...
And it's our movie now.
Yeah. Wait, so like, okay, so what he is contracted to do is go to Rome and murder this guy's sister because she has a seat at the high table now.
To which I go, cool.
Yeah, but
and Evan begins looking at his bowl of popcorn in front of him.
Yeah. But what was I gonna say about that now? I don't know. I think that whole thing, it was also just wrapped up so quickly once he gets to Rome, like in terms of him carrying out that mission. It is a little bit like, what is this about?
Yeah.
And I think...
Well, it does have one of the funnier moments in the movie that I will admit, and I paused to like point it out, where the guy's sister is in like her bathhouse or whatever, and she basically says, I'm going to end on my terms, but I kind of understand that this is just it. She
doesn't even fight him because there's no point in it.
There's no out for me. So, but I want to kill myself. So she turns, and it's so funny. Nudity in movies can be like one of the funniest things in the world because there's like this element of like, do you just show it because in reality it would just be nudity and you would see it, or do you try and hide it? And it's just so funny because she's naked and the camera is like to her back and she puts up her arm and she cuts her wrist, and then you see her in the same shot switch hands and like reposition, and she's trying, you could tell that the actress is trying really hard to make sure like her nipples don't like get exposed. And it's such a like manufactured shot that shot just cracked me up last night.
Yeah.
And then she gets killed by herself, and then John Wick shoots her in the head.
Yeah.
Which will unfold the rest of the events of the movie.
Yeah. And I guess like for me, the action is huge. That really is what carries the movie for me. I mean, the last movie, the emotional stuff was so big too, but the action is so good in this movie. But I think upon this viewing, it was like, oh, all of this story is just to get to the next action scene. And it does feel like a video game, like what we talked about on the last movie, where it's just a progression to harder
these
levels.
Are video games, all of them. Yeah.
Well, and I think I agree with you, and that I think it's obvious to me that that's why. I mean, as a fan of action movies, I think you should like this movie.
Yeah.
What I liked about the first one was its subversion of action tropes, because I don't like action movies, but yet this movie was still for me. The second one does none of that and just is an action movie. The story is secondary to the action, and I think it just, as an enjoyer of movies, it lost me, because I'm not an enjoyer of action movies. I'm an enjoyer of good movies.
Hey, action movies are good. Action movies are good.
No, they can be. I agree. I think John Wick is a great movie, and it is a great action movie, and it is a great movie that is also an action movie. I think I said.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, but let's dig into this a little bit more here. Because I'm thinking about like last year when we started watching a bunch of martial arts movies. Yeah. And a lot of those movies
are just vehicles to get to the next action scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess it does, I'll concede this point that we're talking about the story. It does feel like they are, the story, the character, the actual like what we're doing in the movie is not as well written as the previous movie.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that now.
And I think the big thing about it though is this movie is way more complicated than the first one. The first movie is so simple. A guy killed his dog and he's taking revenge. And this one is like, it's a government. Mm-hmm. There are rules. You have to do these things. You have to honor this blood thing.
I love good rules. These are good rules.
Yeah, I think like if I was reading a book, cool. But for some reason,
this would be a terrible book.
I don't know. But because the first one was so simple, you're going to the second one, like, okay, it's gonna same themes of the first one. And it is like, I have to like lock in all of these things to remember now. When the first one was just like, ooh, what's this, like people who come and clean up bodies as like a dinner service.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I think, to your point, the first one was so good because it's not just the emotional component. It's the mystery that is unraveled as you are following along this human story that you connect to. It's easy. Yeah. You can immediately go to, oh, that guy killed a dog. That guy should die. But you're also getting these little nuggets of like, oh, John Wick's actually, I thought he was a regular guy this whole time with an SUV. And now he's the best assassin in the entire world. And like, it was just happenstance that it's a random chance that this unfolded the way it did. And I just think that is all lost to just pure exposition, which I think is a mark. It's a pretty common in action movies. You can have a really good idea, but if it's all just told to you, without it's show not tell or whatever.
Yeah. Right.
If it's all told to you, I lose interest in that.
Sure.
Whereas if I can discover it, if I'm treated as a intelligent viewer, I feel like I was treated intelligently in the first one, and in the second one, I had to be spoon fed all of this fantasy stuff that I ended up not really caring about because it's all told. It's like,
but if
you know what would happen if you killed somebody on continental grounds. Like it's.
If the first movie is them riffing on and making like the best American action movie they can make, this is them riffing on maybe like more martial arts, like old Chinese martial arts movies, and trying to make the best one they can make.
Yeah.
Maybe that's my little pitch to bridge here a little bit, because I guess, the story stuff, I'm with it the whole time. I just think it's so cool. I mean, I like the opening of the world a lot. And it almost feels like this movie's more fantasy, of course. And I just go with it. And then the next movie, if I'm remembering right, it's almost like that one's more westerny.
Really?
And if they kept kind of like pivoting each time, then I'm like, keep going. You know what I mean? That's where I'm at. But I think I've lost the train that I was on there. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
I mean, you basically, what I heard was you enjoyed you can follow them with these shifts of tone because you see the vision.
Yeah.
And I don't see the vision. I can't follow them there.
Yeah. And I think, like an easy fix is just, but I mean, of course, this is what we're talking about. But there are some series where, like, as a personal viewer, you can just be like, Jaws, here's a great example. It's like, well, maybe not the best example, but it's like, I don't ever want to watch the sequels to Jaws. And if I did, they wouldn't exist in my mind. It's Jaws.
Yeah.
Same with Psycho. That's a better example for me, where it's like, it's Psycho. That's it. There's no others. And so maybe like for Evan, it's got to be like, there's John Wick. And then you go and you see all the movies and you're like, yeah, I still don't like it. But there's only one John Wick.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not, I actually really truly understand why somebody could like that movie. It's just not the type of movie that I like. And that is only interesting if you take into account that I loved the first one, I think. If I just had this opinion in isolation, this would be a boring conversation. I think
right.
The visceral reaction I had to the second movie was my love for the first one.
Yeah. And that's why we wanted you on that, because I don't know. You're the only person I know of that's like, I don't like John Wick 2.
Yeah.
Like it feels like our friend group's like pretty lukewarm on 3. Like when we all walked out of the theater, we were all like, okay, see you guys later. But it feels like 2 is pretty unanimously like critics and everybody's like, yeah, it rules. It's like the rare example of bigger is better. Like, okay, cool. Yeah. And so, I mean, that's part of why it was like, we got to have Evan on this one, because our audience will hear a different opinion on the movie. But
I think that would be a great summation of my opinion. And that's that bigger is rarely better.
Yeah.
I like human stories. I want to keep the focus on the person's journey And as soon as you loop in the destruction or not destruction, I guess in this case, but the power shift of New York City to some unknown Italian man, I just don't care at all.
Right. Well, so speaking of Italian men, I want to tell you both about this. I kind of told Jordan about this, but in this movie, when he goes to Rome, he meets like the owner of the Continental there, who's played by Frank Nero, I think is his name. And he's the guy who played Django in the old Western Django movies. And he's in Django Unchained. He's the guy who walks up to Django and says, how do you spell your name? He spells it, and he's like, the D is silent. And then Frank Nero's like, I know. But what's funny about this guy, and I just don't even know what to make of this, but he is directing this movie called The Man Who Drew God, which is supposed to come out this year. There's no release dates. There's no trailers. But it's an upcoming crime drama directed by Franco Nero and starring him, Kevin Spacey in his first role since the sexual allegations, and Faye Dunaway. Oh, and right here, it marks Spacey's first role after sexual misconduct allegations against him surfaced in 2017. According to Variety, the film is about a blind artist who can draw people from their voice and is wrongly accused of sexually abusing a child. Nero portrays the blind artist, Spacey a police detective, and Dunaway a Braille teacher who is an old friend of the artist. So Kevin Spacey is supposed to...
Kevin Spacey is investigating it?
He's investigating it.
Yeah, right. No one's going to buy that or see that movie.
So I just wanted you all to know about that. That's a real movie. Well, actually, we don't know if it's real yet.
That's true.
Because it's not out, and there's only a poster for this movie.
Is that the one that they were talking about on Office Hours?
They were.
Oh, okay. So that's the one where the poster looked like one of the most unprofessional movie posters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know if that movie's coming out.
Yeah. But very weird. I did not know Faye Dunaway was still alive.
Who's Faye Dunaway?
Isn't that the girl in Chinatown and Network?
Okay.
Right?
I haven't seen Chinatown.
Let me just double check. And I'll edit it out so that I'll have sounded so smart. Yeah, it is her.
Okay.
She's from that. But just want everyone to know, make sure and miss The Man Who Drew God coming this year. But back on target with this movie. So, because we've sped through a lot of good stuff or bad stuff, depending on which side of the table you're sitting on here. But we have this whole crazy montage where he is gearing up, and he goes to like Peter Serafinowicz, and he gets guns.
He's the sommelier.
And this, you're just rolling your eyes, right, at this point?
Yeah, it's a Mission Impossible James Bond scene. It's like a...
And I'm just like, yeah, come on, give me more
Which
of this.
is fine if you're...
It's the break of tone for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't hate this. I think it's fun.
No, I know.
It's tongue in cheek. I think I especially like that he has this cartographer that like gives him keys to the catacombs, which is just ridiculous. But like, I think it's one of the moments in watching this where it's like, who are normal people in this universe? Like, who just has like access to keys to like ancient?
Well, John Wick
catacombs?
Married the only person who's not involved.
I think he did.
Everyone else is an assassin.
So impressed that he retired,
Which is not true in the first movie.
Yeah.
Are there? I'm trying to think of any other character, but what are some other people that were not involved in the first movie?
I think just that like there was the people in the club,
little ladies in the church.
Yep. In just walking in New York when he goes to the Continental the first time. I mean, now we're to assume all those people were assassins, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I always assumed. I mean, of course, this is me giving the movie maybe a little more credit, but I always assumed at the end that he like hired everyone to be there. But of course, when he starts running, it is like everyone he passes.
Oh, at the end of this movie?
Yeah. And then he tells him to freeze.
I think it's people knowing that a bounty's about to be put out on his head, and
in
they
the
just
freeze,
want to be close.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, okay.
In the freeze part, I think in that courtyard, yes.
Okay.
But then he runs away from the courtyard, and it's almost like people are like, "That's John Wick. He's gonna have a hit on his head soon." Like they're just about their Sunday business, and they see.
Do you think those are normal people?
Yeah. Well, no, I don't think they're normal people. I think it was if it was that's a part of the group that was hired to freeze and be there or whatever by the Continental guy. That was a poor description because what I took from that is that, New York is just full of assassins everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it would still be like this universe, if it did exist in our world, and it does, because all those locations you can visit in New York City. Patrick Willems has a video that describes where you can go to all the Wick monuments and stuff. But if it does exist in our world, then it's like for every one civilian, there's 10 assassins.
Yeah, I think so.
So there's 7 billion people on Earth, and probably less than 1 billion of them are not assassins.
Yeah.
They're protecting us, the normal people.
Well, that's the thing in the first movie. He's a bad guy. He's the assassin for the mob.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that.
And he's the assassin
they
you
don't play
go-
on that.
What?
They don't. I don't feel like they play on that thread, and they could.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. You mean like they could?
Like I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah,
Like
they could have gone.
Could have definitely done something with that.
I that's what if I were to write John Wick 2, I would do so good. I haven't thought about it, but I would have just gone out a little bit and explained. Okay, so John Wick is part of this ring of assassins that help the mob, which means there are other, who were the mob's enemies? Who was he going to kill or whatever? And see how his rampage that he went on to kill the Russian mob plays out. Because really the effects of his actions in the first movie have no bearing on the second movie whatsoever.
Yeah.
Well, except for, and you can. This is kind of just a line thing, but the Santino does say, if you had not come back from retirement, I never would have done this. But that is loose. That's loose.
Yeah.
I am admitting
Yeah.
that as well. But I was like, I don't know that I've ever noticed that. So I was.
Sure.
Well, because he also in that scene he says, remember how I helped you during the impossible mission,
Yeah.
and that's why he did the blood oath at all. And I kind of wish, funny enough, that they would have explained that a little bit more. Like, well, apparently there was this impossible job that we heard about in the last movie. I'm not saying tell me everything, but like maybe tell me what he did.
But it also loses mystique when the way they did it. I think it almost. I'm sorry to pick
impossible
apart.
job loses
Yeah,
mystique.
because in the first movie you're like, oh, that's so cool. Maybe they could do a prequel about that. Like, that would be a great movie.
Please
I'd love
don't
that.
make a prequel about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like that
Yeah.
impossible job is a story in and of itself. And even in the first movie, you're like, oh, I can just imagine a million different jobs that are impossible for the boogeyman. Like what is impossible for this person?
Yeah.
And then this guy comes in and he's like, remember when I helped you with your impossible task? Like, well, so you helped the boogeyman, and now you he's supposed to be, you know.
Yeah. I think that's interesting what you said too about how John Wick is a bad guy because he's an assassin, and in this movie and in the next one, like all he's doing is killing assassins. Because especially in this one, he's contracted to kill this woman who we're just assuming she's an assassin if she's a seat at the high table, and then after that he's just fighting for his life, killing other assassins. So we never really get to see him work. Yeah, I guess.
You reminding me though that he's a bad guy, and I will not get into it this episode, but it might actually fix my issues with chapter 3. Remembering that he was working for the bad guys. It might fix it. And I can talk to you both about it off mic once we're done.
Okay.
But gotta save it. Gotta keep them wanting more. Okay. So we've done all that. We've gone through we've done the Colosseum, right? I mean, as we've discussed so many times, it's so hard to describe action. We don't necessarily get into that.
What do you think of the party scene with the band?
Lame.
Yeah.
Reminded me of like the Fifth Element, the
I still have never
Matrix.
seen the Fifth Element.
Yeah.
They all have that party scene. It's like, I've seen it. Blah.
Well, what's fun is this is in our podcast, as we've been doing the Keanu, it's like you have the Bill and Ted movies, which all have to some degree like a concert or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's 3.
To some degree.
Well,
every movie has a concert. They play music.
So that's 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And then we have Matrix 1 has a club. Matrix 2 has the Zion orgy scene. Matrix 3 has another club where the Merovingian's at. I'm assuming that Matrix 4 has to have a club scene. It please better have one. And then John Wick 1 has the red circle. Then this one has the forum. It's like, I guess something about Keanu, people are like, we got to see him in a club with lights flashing all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I am totally biased. I've outed myself as biased. I do think that the red circle scene has something about it that feels a little more grounded in reality to me.
Oh yeah, this with like even the type of music they're playing and stuff is very. I was thinking every time I listen to this, like. Okay, you know, we've played music together, of course. We still play music together.
Sure.
When you're watching movies and they have like original songs within the movies, do you ever get caught like thinking about like, would this really be a hit, or would people really like this?
Well, EDM's easy though. It's like you never know what it's all the same. So
because like this song,
which is designed to be, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, this song that they're playing. I don't even like it's kind of cool, but I'm like, is this something that like people would gather in a forum and like listen to?
They're not
and
gathering
be like,
for that. They're gathering because it's that woman's like coronation.
And that's another thing. All the people at the party are involved. It's her coronation to the high table.
Oh yeah.
So they're not even real people. They're somehow involved.
That's
in this.
weird. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if they have like a cover story though, because the extras in those scenes are not acting like an assassin would act. You know what I mean?
But they might have like mob interests.
Yeah, they're the accountants of the mob, and you know.
Yeah.
Now, did you see Nobody this year?
Yeah, just recently.
What did you think of that movie?
I liked it. I liked it. I liked I liked it.
I mean, you can get into it a little bit if you want.
No, I think it had a human story that I connected with. I cared about. It was, and it also kind of had that like onion peeling back the layer, like who is this guy? What's his story? It felt pretty similar to John Wick in a lot of ways of like, and
almost like the same writer wrote it kind of thing.
But like, I think that made it worse probably too. Is like you kind of just like erased John Wick's name and made him, an army guy instead of a assassin. But I liked it. I liked it better than John Wick 2.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I'm kind of wondering about, because I'm remembering that movie being
the
like
stakes
still way over the top, but it is still very like human.
Yeah, I just like low stakes or personal stakes.
Yeah.
I like personal stakes more than I like the cities.
Or Omaha stakes.
No, I've never had. I can't say.
I've never had Omaha stakes.
So after the forum, where do they go?
So then he has the big fight with Cassian, his first fight. Because Cassian realizes he's like the bodyguard of the girl. I don't remember. Gianna.
She's his ward.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. And so he's like, I got to go get John Wick. And so he's chasing him. They fight. They do have speaking to your like over the topness of this, like when they get thrown down the stairs and they just keep going down. It's like, am I watching Hot Rod right now? Like that's pretty overkill.
Did you see anything behind the scenes about like how much Common did?
He specifically was saying how like, he knew he had to really buckle in to do this role. And he said it was the kind of thing where, you'd be working for hours and hours, like just training, and you'd come home and like your neck's all messed up or something like that. You'd come in the next day and you go, yeah, like my neck's really sore. And they're like, okay, cool. And then they just put you in a headlock and they're like back at it. And he's like, it was like no rest. You just had to do it.
So he did a lot of preparation.
Yeah. Same with Ruby
Rose.
Yeah. She was saying like, basically the director said to the actors, or the director said, you are allowed to do pretty much as you want.
Yeah.
Or as little as you want. I mean, I'm assuming with Keanu, they're not like, you can do as little as you want. But so they're hiring people who are like hungry to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Here's a potentially ignorant question.
Yeah.
Ruby Rose, she can speak, right? I don't think I've ever seen her in anything else. Okay.
Yeah. I think she's British because she had I think she's definitely British because she had a British accent when she spoke on the thing I was watching.
Oh, Yeah. Okay. I guess like in a movie like this, and I don't want to make it about this at all, but it is like a little bit of a bummer that like it's a testosterone filled movie. Okay. And it's fun. But so there aren't many women in this movie, and one of them can't speak. Kind of sucks. I know while we were watching it, you were like, the American Sign Language thing is really cool. That is cool. That's not represented in movies a lot, but it is kind of a bummer that she doesn't have a voice.
Yeah.
In this movie, when it's a character that we already know is going to die really fast.
Right.
Because we know there's going to be that fight.
Right.
Between them. That's how I felt upon the second viewing about her.
The only other woman in the movie dies.
She kills herself
in 3 minutes after her first scene.
I mean, that is very fair. And all the other women that are in it, he definitely kills. The thing that I said last night that I've just been thinking is funny because recently there's been an influx of movies that have sign language in them, which has been really cool. And it's just funny. I don't know how old sign language is, but for a language that is literally visual, it's been used so little in film. Like over the period of how we've had so many movies that it's like, why isn't this in like more movies than it's not in? It's literally showing and not telling.
Yeah.
And it just, so I just noticed that when we were watching it.
Yep.
I agree.
So tunnels, Cassian fight, throw down the stairs.
So yeah, they end up back in the Continental, which obviously they can't fight anymore.
And I like,
and they just end up in the Continental. You guys, they're fighting in the catacombs, and they fight to the Continental, into the doors of the Continental.
And one thing, ever since watching this movie and knowing that you didn't like it, because I've seen it like 2 or 3 times since, like the first time you said no, I don't like chapter 2. I always think like every time Cassian and John Wick are fighting, I'm thinking Evan hates this so much because there's like this thing, and I think it's really fun and cool, but it's goofy. I mean, I am not gonna try and defend it as like a serious move. It's just fun to look at. Where they're literally like playing tag with their guns. It's like dart guns, and it's like pew pew, jump down, pew pew, boom boom, boom boom, pew pew, and like when they're at the subway station and they're secretly trying to shoot each other so that no one else gets spooked or something.
Even though those people are probably all assassins.
But the thing I do like about them crashing into the Continental, for me, it makes the ending of this movie when he kills Santino, it like drives home like how serious that is. Yeah. That he's gonna do that. Oh man, maybe we can just skip to that part and then come back. Because I'm curious, does the Santino killing scene, does that hit you at all?
I just think it's interesting. John Wick does that 2 times. I feel like in the first scene with this car, you're led to believe that he is killing dozens of men and women, I think, in this movie, for his car back. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we find out it's for the letter. Yeah. But you're led to believe it's for the car, and yet 2 seconds after he reacquires his car, he's willing to slam it into smithereens. Mm-hmm. To make his point, or just because it's cool action or whatever. But it, like, to me, there's a dissonance with the motivation. The motivation was to get his car back, and if he gets his car back in a million pieces, it just doesn't jive with me. And so what I'm getting to is, in the Continental scene, he disobeys the rules that have thus far saved him on multiple occasions, and if you contrast it to the first movie, that one random assassin gal was for $3 million fine breaking Continental rules, because I don't think it was intended to. The Continental was intended to be an authority figure, right? As it became. But she's like, $3 million? Yeah, I'll break the rules. Ba 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 ba. So I guess in that case, like, the fact that he would break the rules, if you actually overlay it with that, makes a lot of sense to me. Like, what's it worth to me? It's worth more than $3 million, or whatever. with what they tried to build up in the second movie itself in Isolation, I guess there was a part of me that went, okay, he's still kind of badass. He does what he wants. You know, he has nothing left to lose, so he gets the bad guy in the end.
Yeah,
I could see it. I know why they did it.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, then we'll see. I had to know if that hit you in any meaningful way. So now we'll cut back at the Continental
In Rome.
and then I think this is when Santino puts out a hit for him.
It was
And then
kind of before this because
Oh, it was.
Ruby Rose and her team were like already going after him.
Catacombs.
So I think it was.
right.
I think it was decided before John Wick even really accepted the job that he was going to eliminate him once his job was done.
Yeah, Ruby Rose comes to kill him, and when she fails, he sets out the contract for everybody, the open contract.
Okay.
And then we have the operator girls.
Yeah.
I like the operator girls a lot.
Just another fantasy thing. Is all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, definitely. For me,
this
when
one, I think I'm into it because it is so. It's probably the most over to the top thing.
Yeah.
So it is
besides
like
besides the homeless thing.
okay,
that kind of tops it all.
This one is more of a spectacle, though. You know, it's just like, okay, that's in this world. Let's just do it.
And it's just fun that they use like old computers and they have to like print them out and stamp them and do all this like nonsensical stuff. I'm like, this is cool. This rules.
A action junkie dude's like best dream scenario of all of these women who are wearing office uniforms full of tattoos that like make them look badass.
Yeah.
I would agree with you that the world building in Isolation, I'm probably prone to that sort of thing. Like the subversion of reality. I just don't like it when it's contrasted with the gritty realism of the first one.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm gonna keep saying it.
But yeah, so the operator girls, big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that they come back again at the end to put John Wick's hit out.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is when he starts making his way to New York.
Yeah.
Goes through the subway, fights with Cassian.
Fights the sumo guy, and then a girl with the violin, and then two other dudes who he kills with a pencil, which I think is cool because there's like he's killed a guy with a pencil before, so it was
hurts to watch.
Yeah,
every time.
But
I always am like,
I thought that
is
was
it gonna hurt this time? Yep, it does.
A fun touch.
Yeah,
I will agree with that.
yeah. And the like huge guy, he shoots him in the shoulder, and then he shoots him like two or three times in the head.
Sides a lot too.
And then he starts getting up, which of course is like more toward Evan's side of the argument, where he's getting up after he's been shot in the head like 3 times, and then he shoots him again.
Yeah.
Love it. Fights violin girl. Love it.
I will say too, throughout the movie, the action, there are a lot of the times. So I know in the forum he was totally prepared with all the guns he needed, but so many other times in this movie he runs out of things. And that's when he has to use his fist a lot. But I think it is fun that he just like starts taking guns from other people. He's starting to reload from other people. And then sometimes when his gun is out, he throws it at a person and then goes up to him and like steals their gun.
Yeah.
I think the choreography, and I know we're not saying the action's bad, but like the choreography is like very inventive.
Insane.
No, it's very good. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, like we said last week, this is that thing where it's, you know, Chad Stahelski, martial artist, stunt double, 4 years, worked with Keanu. It's like, I just don't know if someone who didn't have a vast knowledge of martial arts and had been doing this for years and years could direct a movie and have this cool of stuff happening.
Right.
And that goes into like the Chinese tradition where you have like Yuen Wing Pu, and he's just directing these movies that are like mind blowing to look at because he does that stuff.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if Jackie Chan did much directing, but he I think he did. I think he directed a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or at least he was like the creative force that would like push these projects. And that's why all those movies are so cool.
Yeah.
And so this is just like in that same vein. So it just is like shot to the system.
Mm-hmm.
But I do love how he stabs Cassian in the heart.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got the blade in your aorta.
If you pull it out, you'll die.
Mm-hmm.
But he's basically, and he's like saying, if you get up, you die. You got a chance to live, though. I'm not gonna kill you.
I was a little offended though, because that is a very much tell. The knife is in your aorta. As if the master assassin he has been bested by a few times doesn't understand that, like that's purely for the audience to understand.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that kind of stuff pisses me off. Like the assassin with the knife in his heart knows that it's in his aorta or whatever. Like,
So would like a better scenario for you is like that happens and then he just like says like be seeing you.
yeah,
and,
or
walks
like
away.
or something, or just cutting out the medical part.
Yeah.
Like we know the knife is in his heart.
Yeah.
Like
It's right
just
there.
saying like I'm gonna let you live. It's a professional courtesy or whatever. I'm sure there's a much better way to write that.
Yeah, I get that.
But
Yeah.
just like the pandering, it's very obvious. to me.
I'm into it. I'm into it. Folks, tweet at what is it? What's your handle?
Evan Kunze.
At Evan Kunze, and tell him Mike is right. No, I'm kidding. We welcome your opinion, and it's been very fun to have it. So Cassian's out of the equation now.
So he goes to
They should bring him back in like chapter 4.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. That would be cool. I like Hammond in this movie a lot. I think it's a classic case of good casting.
I think he's good too.
Um,
So we go to the art exhibit, the museum.
And by the way, did you notice that like every scene has reflections in this movie?
Yeah.
It reminded me of when we were of Matrix 1, how it's like almost every scene there's like a mirror or something that you're seeing Keanu in.
The art museum, you skipped the Lawrence Fishburne.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because he's getting
It's easy
chased.
to do because it means literally nothing. You could cut it out and it doesn't change the movie.
So
That's actually true. You are right.
This is what I'll say about that. I can't remember what I felt the first time, but watching it this time, and this was the part of the movie where I was like, this movie's got to be over.
Yeah.
And I think that's because upon seeing it the second time, it's like, why is this in the movie?
Seriously. So there's this whole thing. Okay. First of all, a very missed opportunity for foreshadowing, because there's this whole pigeon thing, I guess, that's even at the end of the movie. You see the pigeon.
Do you see that they're putting like SIM cards in them?
But there's no foreshadowing of that at all in the rest of before that happens. So when you get there, you're like, why do I care? What are these SIM cards? Like, well, you know. But also, literally, like he's like convinces. So he somehow ends up talking to a guy that he once killed without knowing that's who he was talking about. So he knows this like mystical, what's his name? The Bowery guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up.
He's got like a
You're talking Fishburne right now?
Fishburne's character has like a weird
Morpheus.
mystical name. So he puts the thing in the jar and he says, "Take me to him." So he knows this. There's this figure in New York City where he has all his eyes everywhere in these homeless people. Bowery King.
His name's Evan. You're telling me you don't like a movie with a character named Bowery King?
So the first thing you see, the first interaction, he knows he's going to the Bowery King. He knows about the Bowery King. We don't know about the Bowery King. We've never heard of the Bowery King.
And can't wait to find out.
We see him, and then the Bowery King's first words to John Wick is like, "You know, you once tried to kill me. You gave me this scar. You don't remember this." And so like that's so.
Oh yeah, that is kind of wild.
But John Wick has no idea that that's who the Bowery King is. And then John Wick's like, "You have to help me." And he's like, "Why would I help you? You tried to kill me." And he's like, "Because if you don't, Santiago's going to take New York." And so then this is the craziest part. He's like, "So are you going to give me a gun?" So the whole thing that John Wick was trying to do when he put the money in a cup was to get a gun. And the homeless guy shoots those two guys in the head that were chasing him in the subway. He shoots two guys. So he had a gun. He could have just asked for a gun and gave him a coin. But so he goes to the Bowery King and goes to the seedy figure. We have no idea who the Bowery King is.
Yeah.
Obviously, he cares about the power structure of New York.
Yeah.
So he says, "Or are you gonna give me a fucking gun?" And then Lawrence Fishburne pulls out this special gun and he says, "I'm only giving you 7 bullets.
One for each million."
Okay, and that's not the worst part though. The worst part is those 7 bullets are gone in 1 minute later, and he throws away the gun. So there's all this pomp and circumstance about getting the gun. Maybe there's some symbolism I don't understand or something, but you could literally cut out that entire part. And the movie would not be any different.
And I gotta say too, when you're like over an hour and a half into a movie. And you have to go to like someone who's called the Bowery King, like anyone who's in charge of anything. No matter what, I'm going to be sitting there being like, 15 more minutes at least.
Well, and his presence is not felt anywhere but his 15 minutes. So except for I did notice a shot in the final sequence where there is pigeons.
The pigeons like fly away.
Yeah.
I didn't put that together till this conversation. I don't even know if it's intentional,
to be honest, but like
that's probably just a John Woo
I literally
nod.
was thinking at the last shot, I'm like, how'd they get all those pigeons up there? That's cool.
He's not at the high table.
Yeah.
He's not involved in the assassin thing.
So we don't really know what he does other than
no
like
idea.
controls pigeons and maybe the homeless people who aren't homeless.
What I took from it, and I could be wrong, but what I took from it is that because John Wick snuck up on him, gave him a scar, he now sees all. That was like his origin story to become the Bowery King was because John Wick almost killed him. And now, because he has that line where he's like, now no one sneaks up on me. I see everything. So that's his origin story. Like that's his presence in New York. Is
can I make a rebuttal?
Wait. It's almost like Fishburne, obviously an assassin at one point because everyone is.
Yeah.
And he was betrayed by an assassin who maybe he trusted. And then it's like, you know what? F all this. He gets out, but he doesn't just like
creates his own
retire.
society.
He creates his own system. And it's like, maybe that would be a little bit cooler. Maybe that's what they're even going for, but it's not explained very well.
Yeah, and you have ample opportunity to foreshadow before that. You could hear about the Bowery King, or you could hear like also I'm sorry, I just have to, this reminded me, maybe it comes back in the third movie, but the sister has this conversation with
that guy in that room. Yeah.
And
about how like, that's my territory now or something.
I watched it 3 times. I could not decipher the dialogue, and I was expecting it to come back into play, and it doesn't. So I have no idea why that's in there either. Yeah. So but that could have been a situation where like a reference to the Bowery King.
So can I make a rebuttal to the Bowery King and everything you just said, Evan?
Yeah.
I think you're right. Yeah, you broke down that sequence pretty perfectly because, I mean, you're right. As far as a story function goes.
Okay, so...
But wait. Okay. No, hang on. No, me.
Fine.
But... yeah, it does feel like it exists just to be like, it's Morpheus and Neo, guys.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And I was the stunt double in Matrix, and we've already made a couple Matrix references in John Wick 1. Let's do this one. And I kind of fall for that, like I totally, like I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I love Lawrence Fishburne. This guy can do no wrong. And he's just like, way over the top, but like I'm loving everything he's doing. But you breaking down the story of it all. Yeah, it actually doesn't serve a function in the movie.
Yeah, and what I'm nervous about when we watch the third one again is because I didn't really like it. I'm sure the listeners have caught on to that by now.
We're gonna like it though.
But I'm kind of wondering if a lot of that movie story-wise is gonna make me feel how I felt with the Lawrence Fishburne stuff, where it's just like, why though, and what is going on.
I do remember that the third movie ends with a shot of Lawrence Fishburne sitting on, I think, a throne, and he says,
Game of Thrones throne.
like, there's a new king in town, and that was the last line of the movie, and it was like, or no, he says, time to go to war.
So
yeah,
because I remember I was like, whoa, I did not realize there were going to be more of these.
I assumed that, it felt like that probably was the case that Lawrence Fishburne would come back in the third. I don't remember if he does or not I don't remember watching.
Well, he's in that last shot at least.
So to me, that kind of is one of those things where if they write the second and third movie together, maybe you get a pass on that.
Yeah.
But if you take it in isolation, it's so bullshit.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah. That leads John to have 7 bullets in his gun, which, like you said, he loses in about 5.5 seconds. I mean, I do like this on like a functionality level. I do like the fact that it's like 7 bullets, have to find another one, use it, find another one.
He could have done that.
He could have done that anyway.
He had that ran out.
Yeah,
really fast.
But yeah, it doesn't. That's just I hadn't thought of it the way that you're saying it. I'm like, he's just right. There's not like a way to loop around and be like, actually, Evan, and it's like, no, that just doesn't work. And so we have this whole fight through this art gallery.
Mm-hmm.
He's reloading, throwing guns, grabbing new guns. Once they're out, he throws them.
And then he gets to the mirror room.
I'm checking Twitter on my phone.
Oh, come on. Twitter's not as good as this. Goes to like the mirror reflection room.
Which I thought was in the third movie.
It's
That
because...
was Lost.
Oh, my gosh.
You okay?
In the third movie, he fights...
Gross.
In the third movie, he fights a couple of like
I know.
assassins with swords and like, but I think it's like all glass.
Yes,
so it
I
looks
remember
really
that part.
similar. So it totally makes sense.
I don't think it's because of that.
Oh, okay.
So stop telling me what I think happened.
Okay, jeez. But all of this, there are still shots where every time it makes me feel silly. Every time I'm watching this, where it'll show an angle, it's like this funhouse mirror kind of thing. And then someone moves or someone gets shot, and I'm like, wait, I thought they were like this way or something. Or like that last shot where Keanu's walking out of it, and it, like, I can't figure out that. I think they have like a camera strapped to him or something.
I understand what you're saying. How you can't see the camera?
Well,
or
no,
how
not,
they edited it out?
No, where it's just like, oh, I thought he was moving this direction, but then something changes, or
Yeah.
they shoot someone that was on the left side of the screen, but he's aiming toward the right. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all of that stuff is just really effective, I think.
Yeah.
Like, they just use that environment so well.
Yeah.
I like it. What else do we think about the reflection room?
I mean, where is that in reality? Like, I get they did a little like, welcome to the New York Museum and the
Yeah.
light prism. Welcome to the exploration of light, and it's like, yeah, this is a set piece for an action movie. That's what this is.
That's what we need. Action movies gotta have set pieces. And then
This is when Ruby Rose dies.
Yeah.
Or, I guess we don't see her die, but he
and
stabs
she
her.
says, "Be seeing you."
Yeah.
And then he goes back to the Continental, and Santino says he's sitting there and he's like, "Man, a man could live here for a long time without even eating the same meal twice."
Mm-hmm.
He's talking, and he's saying how, like, you know, John, I was gonna kill you, and I'm still. Well, I'm trying to remember what he actually says, but he just says.
I think he's just kind of like saying, like, think before you do something. And then while he's doing that or talking to him, Winston is trying to get him to stop.
Yeah,
he's trying to get John to like calm down.
He's like, John,
Yeah.
John, and because Winston sees what's about to happen. And this scene, especially in the theaters, like I was like so wrapped up that when he shot him, I was like, "What? You can't do that!" Like
they told you can't do that.
And every time I watch it, I think it's such an effective scene that it's just like wild to me every time. But I'm like a sucker for this whole last sequence, like when he's out in Central Park and he starts running. I just remember when I left the theaters, I was like, bring it on, baby. Like I had felt like they told a complete story, but I was like, I can't wait to get my hands on John Wick 3.
I was just like, why? Like, John Wick has proven himself to every single one of these people. Everywhere he goes, everyone loves him.
Mm-hmm.
They all bend over backwards for him. They all know who he is. You know, he's at the table with this Continental guy. Just everyone knows that that Santiago or whatever his name is reneged on his marker, right? Like, they know he's out to kill John. Just give him a pass. He's John Wick, you know, like
How much fun would that be to watch, Evan?
This guy is the top of the Continental thing. Apparently, he's like the head of the high table or something. I don't know. He's like the Continental guy or whatever, and he can't just he can extend John Wick's time by 1 hour, but he can't just make it all go away. Really?
No, he can't.
Wouldn't it be cool though wouldn't that be a good ending though, don't you think? Like, you see it enforced for everyone else, but then all of this reputation and this superhero John Wick stuff he's been building for all his life it amounts to something. You know, he gets something out of it by like saying, you know what? you've earned a pass on this one or something like it. That's a good ending too, I think. I mean, maybe if I saw it, I'd disagree, but it's
I don't think so. I mean, they told us, Evan. They told us at least one time no killing in the Continentals, right?
Time,
just once. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, the whole ending with Winston and he, we've kind of already talked about it. But where John Wick starts running, credits roll, his dog's with him.
He gives
and
him
stuff.
an hour.
He gives him an hour. And I do. This is one thing that I really love about the third movie is how it starts like the hours start over. And like this is the beginning of the movie. So it's cool that it's just like it continues right away. But yeah, I mean, I love this movie. I hope for all you John Wick 2 heads out there, I hope I defended it enough for you. But I don't know. What else do we want to say about this movie?
I love the first one. I think I like the second one is where I'm at right now.
And you don't like, I mean, come on. You don't like it.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I love the first one.
Yeah. So, any final thoughts?
I think that if the listener really likes the third movie, what they have already heard today, they might be a little bummed out about the next episode.
I have a feeling I might be changing my tune on chapter 3 though, on this viewing.
Whoa, that's crazy.
I think I might be.
Because I think it's because of 3 that I maybe switched 2 from love to like.
Sure. But I mean, there's something to be said for any movie that does at least something excellently that sometimes I'm fine with like overlooking things.
Yeah.
So these movies, it's like Mission Impossible. They do these sequences that are like, this sequence is better than most whole movies. So it's like, I give you a pass. Although I think for the most part, the Mission Impossibles, I would defend their storytelling and all that stuff too, except for Mission Impossible 2. That's a bad one. But those are good movies. And I think this is in that same camp for me. Although I think I do like Mission Impossibles better. But where it's like the action is so excellent. The action is like 12 out of 10. Mm-hmm. So you get a little boost on some of your other stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel about
I think
a lot of
I
stuff.
agree with that for me as well.
And my final thought is, for my personal preference, 12 out of 10 action does not a good movie make.
And for me, it does. It does. We've watched a lot of those martial arts movies where it's like, the story of this doesn't make sense and is bad. But this is a good movie. But yeah, so let me look at the calendar here. Wow, it's the 28th of January. And next week, it will be February. And we will be covering John Wick Chapter 3. There will be no other movies that will get in our way. And of course, this month on Patreon, we're covering Nobody. Mm-hmm. And next month, we're going to cover something. I don't know what yet. But it'll be in the description of this episode, patreon.com/MicahMcCaw.
Are we going to do our Interstellar beef?
Oh, should we do the Interstellar beef?
Wow.
I'd love to.
We can do the Interstellar beef. I think just the further I have... Because, okay, we had a pretty big beef, folks. Evan and I, where I was just like, Interstellar's my favorite movie, and I like couldn't accept to him...
And let me make sure you tell my side right.
Yeah.
Interstellar is the first 3/4 of Interstellar is my favorite movie.
But I think what I mean to say is the more I do this podcast, listen to other podcasts, watch more movies and stuff, the more I actually have grown to be like, it's okay for, like having you on Chapter 2. 4 years ago, I would have been like, we can't have Evan on Chapter 2. I like that movie. But it's like, no, I want to hear it. But we've gone a long way. But yeah, let's beef it.
Great.
You don't like the end of the movie. You think
Are we doing it now? I thought we were doing it for Patreon. That was what I was suggesting.
I guess there's a plug, folks. See you next week.
I mean, I don't want to jump on your Patreon shows. I
thought
if you needed some content, we've been talking. It's been building up for 4.5 years.
I think it needs to happen.
So we're gonna do. I think we'll still do a normally scheduled Patreon episode, but we'll do an additional extra mini-sode where Evan and I will discuss the ending of Interstellar.
Great.
Maybe we should just throw away all the nice things we said, though, and just be like yelling at each other. We'll make it like a true fight, you know?
Just the only thing is you have to remain friends by the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think because yeah,
Gearing up for a fight, baby.
I think Micah's matured since then, so we're good.
What did you say?
I think Micah's matured since then, so I think we're okay.
Yeah. And you have 2. Hey. See you next week, folks.
Bye.